Alright, so we had an $850 budget. Everything you see plus the case came out to $843. I'll give you a rundown of the parts real quick. A 6700Xt for the graphics card. For the motherboard went the MSI B550. A Ryzen 5 5600X. We have 500 gigabytes of SSD for the boot drive. And then went with 16 gigabytes of RAM at 3600 speed from T-Force. Some Arctic fans, Arctic cooler for the CPU. And for the power supply, went to 750 watt thermal tank. Now we're gonna put everything inside the cooler master case we have right here. All right, now we got our motherboard out. Get our CPU ready. Now there is a little gold dot on the corner of these CPUs. So you want to lift up this tab. And there's going to be a arrow on the motherboard lining up with the gold arrow on the CPU. Drop it in. Don't force it, but you can wiggle around, make sure it's in there, and lock down the pin. Okay, now for the air cooler. I'm gonna put the air cooler on before I put the RAM sticks in. And this Arctic cooler does have thermal paste, and Arctic's paste is pretty good as far as like the testing that's been out there. But if you don't want to use that, you can always go with some Noctua thermal paste. It's really good too. All right, now for the air cooler. So this fan is going to blow this way, and I want this to exit out the back. So we're going to put it on like so. Now your motherboard has two tabs on it, and in your cooler here, you have these tabs right here. We're going to hook onto the motherboard and then tighten it down. Make sure these tabs are inward like this. So we're going to place this down on the CPU. Okay. Now that they're both on there, make sure we're lined up pretty good. And we're going to tighten them not all the way each time. So a little bit on this side, a little bit on that side. That way we get an even spread on our thermal paste. And then don't forget your CPU fan. Make sure we route it out of the way. Motherboard is marked. Alright, now we're going to install our memory RAM. Now, one thing to note, and this is not for every single case, but when there's a sticker on the side, it's towards the CPU. But always just check and make sure they're lined up. And then your motherboard is going to tell you for what DIMMs to use first. And 99% of the time it is 2 and 4. And this is also marked and it tells you that. Once you hear that nice audible click, that is in. And there's our memory. All right, we're going to install our SSD. Take off this heatsink. Make sure it's going in the right way. You'll see it, the little notch here. Press in like so, and then hold it down. And there is a tiny screw that comes with your motherboard. It's tight. Peel off the back of your heatsink. Alright, so once we got our CPU installed, the cooler, the RAM, the SSD, now let's drop this into the case. Alright, to get this glass panel, there's 2 thumb screws on the side here. And it slides ½ inch to the left. You can pull that out and set this to the side. And we're going to lay this down. That way we can drop our motherboard in. Alright, the cover, we're going to first pop that in here. Alright, now I got a motherboard, place it over the standoffs. This is where a strong magnet screwdriver really comes in hand as I drop that one. Alright, this is our front panel connections. There is 2 slots underneath this case. I'm going to route these through here, and then HD audio to the farther side. Now we can flip it around. Alright, now for the front panel connections, you have your power switch, reset switch, 3.0. These are a pretty tight fit in this case. Audio. Alright, now we got our power supply out. This fan's on the bottom. Run these cables through. Alright, now we're sorting through our power supply cables. Got some stuff out of the way. Here's stuff we're definitely going to need. One for the motherboard, for the CPU for the motherboard, and then our 24 pin for the motherboard. And then our graphics card is a 16 pin, so we need 2 of these PCIe cables. They're 8 pins each. So I'll put those to the side, and then I'll probably just need 1 SATA cable. And then since this is not a modular, I'm just going to tie the rest up, get them out of the way. Alright, the first one's going to run through. I'm going to the bottom. These are the GPU cables. It's a really tight fit in this case, but this is the cleanest way. Now for the CPU cable, we're going to run this a little bit to the right, because there's a little slot here. We're going to go ahead and plug this one in. Now for the motherboard, 24 pin. Go to this top grommet. Time for the GPU. Now I did catch this 6700Xt on sale, and just you got to be patient with sales, and like these GPUs are coming down in price pretty fast, so be patient and get a good deal if you gotta stick with the budget. There's a little tab, push it back. Nice audible click there. Now we have 2 screws on the outside of the case right here. We're going to screw down. And we're going to hook up our PCIe cables. Now what you can do is use this one for the other side, but I'm just going to zip tie it out of the way because I think it looks a little ugly when you do it like that, in my opinion. Now, best case scenario is you have some like cable extensions or cable mod, but that'll be over our budget, and this is what we're going to do. Alright, next up we're going to install our fans. Now I'm going to have 2 up top, exhaust out, and then 1 at the back, exhaust, and then 3 in the front as intake. Alright, now we're going to work on the front panels. Now on this cooler ratchet case, you just pop this front panel off. It's held in by tabs. So we're going to mount our fans on the inside of this case. Run our wire down to the bottom. Make sure your fans are pointing in the right direction. Now in this case you can put them on the outside, but it's easier to screw in if they're on the inside, that way you can screw them on the outside, because if you put them on the outside you have to screw from inside the case, and once you have their parts in there it's really hard to do. Alright, now that we got our fans in, let's pop our screen on. Got a little dust shield up here. Alright, for our fans, we're going to use a fan hub. This is from Deep Cool. It's like 15 bucks on Amazon. That way we only have one cable going to our motherboard, and then all 6 fans are coming to this controller back here. 4-pin connector back here. And then this will be going towards your motherboard. Then for power, it gets hooked up to a SATA cable. Okay. It comes with some 3M Velcro. That way we can just mount it right here. Now all these fans are PWM fans, so you can control them, or you can set a curve to them, whatever you want it to be. Okay, now that we have all our fans hooked up, I'm going to run this to the motherboard. Now on this motherboard it is marked, it's called System Fan 1, and that's what we're going to put our controller on. Then we'll push the excess wire back through, that way we can keep it clean up here. Okay, now I'm going to explain. This is probably why you would try to look for a modular power supply, because we have 3 extra SATA cables, and we're only going to use one because it has 4 slots on them. So we're going to use one of them for the fan controller, and then if you have a hard drive or a 2.5 2.5 inch SSD, you can you have 4 extras, and then you can just like put these in the box for later, but we're just going to tie them up, have to shove them under. So that's like the only big issue with a non-modular power supply, but it's not a big deal if you just have somewhere to stuff them. Alright, so we're going to hook up the fan controller to the SATA. It can only go in a certain way. And we're hooked up. Now it's time to clean this mess up. Alright, I'm going to tighten up the cords that we're not using. Have just some simple Velcro ties. Now in most cases you'll have little hooks that you can tie some cables out of the way. So we'll take this little bundle of cables. Over here. Here's a little tie here, so we're going to use another. Now for some loose cables, I'm just going to use these Velcro ties just in case we've got to move anything around. These are all pretty tight, so as long as you can get your back panel push back in, or back panel on without any problems, that's like the main goal, and then like a smaller case like this. Alright, let's see what kind of damage we can do. First boot up. Okay, all my fans are working. CPU fans are working. Graphics card fans are working. And we do have display. So, success. Alright, I'm showing this footage I took. I did a couple tests. So, the Radeon 6700Xt on the left is the current PC that I just being shown built. Then I swapped it out, put a 3080 just to see what the FPS difference in certain games. Now, as you can see, like as far as like FPS is around the same, but the lows, the 1% lows, are lower on the 6700XT, which is to be expected. But I was still surprised how well the CPU, the AMD CPU, and the AMD graphics card, how well they work together with like SAM activated. And this is a great build below 900 bucks. I mean, in my opinion, this, if I had the budget of this amount, I would lean towards this combo, or even having, a Ryzen CPU and then pairing it with an AMD graphics card. So I'm gonna let this run through. Um, Warzone 1 was the first one. This is Valorant, and then the next one is God of War. And I realized the 3080 does perform better in single player games like God of War. Um, Probably roughly around 30 to 40 FPS. But when it comes to esports titles, it's relatively close depending on what settings. But I appreciate, if you made this far, I appreciate it. Give a thumbs up, subscribe if you enjoyed it. Till next time.